The last time you filled out a cyber liability insurance policy, were you honest? Did you validate that everything you were saying yes to was actually something you're doing in your business? Or have you never filled out a cyber liability insurance policy form before? And if not, this is the video for you. Let's talk about it. Welcome back. I'm Chris Burns with Techie Gurus, and today we're going to talk about the most anticipated conversation that you've had all year. Now, granted, it's February, so take that for what it's worth. But we're going to talk cyber liability insurance forms, the gotchas, what one looks like, including what one looked like at the beginning of 2021, and as we saw cyber attacks rise and businesses become more under attack and the risk goes higher for the insurance companies, we're going to look at one from the end of 2021 going into 2022. And then as a special surprise, I'm going to show you what I'm going through right now, and you can laugh or you can cry with me. So let's get started. So what we're looking at right now is an insurance application before March 2021. So before March of 2021, this is for an EMED. It's for an application for cyber liability insurance. Let's kind of go through that real quick, and then I'll show you what it was after March of 2021. So as you can see at the top, it's 3 pages total. Typical details on cyber liability insurance policy are going to be, your name, business address. If you're doing a business, if you're doing a DBA, whatever, what type of business are you? When you established it, they're going to ask for usually like revenue, how much coverage you're asking for. So as you get down through here, you'll see like limit of liability desired. Cool. You know what? How much liability do you want? Do you want $500,000, $1 million, whatever? Your annual revenue. And then they kind of get into the network and security privacy. So this is typically where you're going to hand this off to somebody like an IT manager internally, or an IT admin if you have one internally. And if you don't, if you outsource, then you'd give this to your outsource company, or you'd bring them in to have them help you update this, right? So the thing here is you don't want to just fill this out and just choose yes to everything, because if you do have a breach and they come back in and they go through and they do like a forensics audit, they're going to check for all this stuff, and you don't want to give them an excuse not to pay a claim. So if you say that you're doing all this and you're not doing any of it, and they come in and they check on that, and then you have a claim that you need to take care of, it's a good chance they're going to deny your claim. So again, I'm not an agent. This is what we've been told from talking to people in the industry and whatnot. So I don't want to go through all this because this is a lot, but you can see this is, on this page, it's 9 items total to fill out. And you scroll down to the next page and it's, okay, do you have a loss? Do you have a loss history? That's it. Pretty simple, right? Before March. Cool. Let's look at the revised after March of last year. Now it's way different. It's significantly different if you look at it. They're still asking for the same information about your business, but now they're asking for not just your current revenue, but the last 2 years prior. Before they were just asking for your revenue. Now they're saying, well, no, we want to know what your current revenue is, plus the prior 2 years prior and the gross revenue part. It's a lot more information. So now they get into and they break down what they're actually looking for. So for like records, do you collect PII? They're trying to establish their risk inside of the business. Okay. Now they're also saying, okay, well, do you collect things like facial recognition, biometric markers, right? Because that's a bigger deal. Because now there's companies out there getting sued for having biometric information. So, obviously if you don't, you choose no. PCI DSS, how are you handling credit cards and whatnot? Go through that. And now you get to the part of the actual IT part. So remember, this is only 9 questions before. Well, you look in here, it's actually saying, okay, who's responsible for your IT? Now, one of the first things you're going to see is it says, who's responsible for the applicant's network security? If you have a managed IT provider, you're probably going to put them. However, are you really getting managed security from them? Everybody assumes that, or for the most part, most people assume that. That may not be the case. They may be providing you with IT services, but not necessarily the security you need. So even though you put them down, you really want to make sure that they're actually doing all that and they're actually responsible for that. That's why for us, roles and responsibilities are critical, and we actually describe that out in what's considered our master customer agreement. So you want to refer to that too as well. So you get that done, and that's like, okay, well now we're actually going to get down to email security controls. So as you can see, the last one was 3 pages. This is 7 total. The whole application is 7 pages. Well, How do you control your email, right? What kind of security controls do you have on your internal? Are you using MFA? This stuff wasn't on the forms before because the form from before was from 2016 that they'd used for 5 years. And now it's like, well, hold on, there's a lot more that we have to get to this because they've lost money. They want to make sure that you're doing all the security stuff internally before they pay out. So doing all this is actually better for you as a business to make sure you're doing all this, but you also want to make sure that you're actually doing it and choosing yes or no. If you're not doing something, don't be afraid to choose no. Make sure you're honest on this application. But as you can see, it gets down to asking things like, do you encrypt data? Do you have a next generation antivirus? Do you have EDR, MFA and privilege accounts? Are you doing privilege accounts management? This is stuff that's a more advanced IT solution. This is where you have to get into more cybersecurity. Do you roll out hardened baseline configuration across servers, laptops, desktops, and managed mobile devices? That's very rare, especially in small business because of the cost factor. So you have to really look at who's providing your IT and look at this and say, okay, are we doing all this? And if you're not, that's okay. Choose no. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be denied service, but you want to make sure you're accurate on here. So as you can see right here, look, just in this section for internal security controls, they go from A to V. There was only 9 questions before. There's 26 just there. And that hasn't even got to the fact that they're talking about then like your backup and disaster recovery policies. Because before it was like, are you backing up? And yes or no. Well, now it's like, well, no, are you backing up? How often are you backing up? How long does it take to recover? Critical questions that you should be asking your business are being asked on an insurance form. Then you get on to phishing controls, just in case you want to see who has accounting responsibilities and who doesn't, because a lot of times wire fraud and business email compromise targets accounting people because they can transfer money. And that's a big deal. That's where cyber liability insurance, if they cover wire transfers, if you have a wire transfer fraud, you want to make sure that you spell this out correctly, but they have to cover that in the event if that's covered by the policy. Now, one thing this doesn't highlight is we're seeing newer applications, even newer than this, that are actually going through and they're going to the point of asking for, or breaking it down even further, saying, okay, maybe you have $500,000 worth of coverage, but only $250,000 can be used for ransomware. So that's stuff that we're seeing now. Those are kind of newer insurance forms that are being filled out. So now that you've seen this, let's have some entertaining stuff. Let's just show you what I have to fill out as an IT provider. So this is our application. Okay. This is actually, I'll make this full screen. This is an Excel spreadsheet. We don't do a PDF because ours is significantly longer. So you can see we have to do our annual sales. We have to fill in all this. We have to break down what part of our business is done through like third parties. We have to say, how does our business operate? Are we hosting data for customers? Other questions are basically on the whole solution that we offer. We also have to provide a copy of our agreement that we have with every customer to the insurance company. And then it gets even more intricate with our business, let's say, because they want to know a breakdown of the percentage of our revenue is done on which services. And then they want to do it by industry, by sector. What percentage of our business is from each sector? And there goes the contracts, mergers, acquisitions, claims, media liability. This is just the application for us. We have to do a full risk assessment so they can actually determine what our cost is going to be. So remember, the first form for a normal company was 9. The next one was probably about 50 questions, maybe a little bit less than 50. Ours breaks down into policies, network security, perimeter security, vendors, everything. We have 149 things I have to report on, as well as give them proof of certain things to even get insurance. I also have to sign declarations for ransomware and other things that we're doing exactly what we say we're going to do, or we could get denied. And the reason for that is because our cyber liability insurance has to be both for us and has to cover partially for our customers, which usually is up to 49% of an event. If something happens and we're negligent, we would still have to cover that. So our insurance would pay out for our customer. But the customer still has to have cyber liability insurance to their part to cover the rest of it. And we actually require that in our agreements. We require our customers to have cyber liability insurance for that reason. So this is just 3 applications. One for service provider. You see mine. Mine's a nightmare. Mine takes me a long time to fill out. And then you saw the 2 differences. So let's kind of talk about overall, like, what does this really mean? So let's recap a little bit. When you're filling out these forms, it's critically important that you're honest. If you're not doing something, just be honest. You can always go back to the insurance company, to the agent, because they have to go through underwriting to actually determine whether you're getting insurance or not. Don't lie. If an agent tells you don't need cyber liability insurance, find a different agent. Because a lot of these agents, or if they tell you only need like $100,000 worth of coverage, find a different agent. An agent should be looking at your business, looking at your revenue, looking at what you do, and making sure that they're providing coverage that's going to cover in the event of a breach. If you're in a regulated industry, if you do PCI, if you do like credit cards and things like that in your business, if you're retail, there's a different level of requirement for you because you have more sensitive information. If you do healthcare, it's even worse. So for your industry, make sure you have an agent that is an expert in your industry, and talk to a company that has experts in cybersecurity. The problem that we're seeing is a lot of agents don't understand cyber because it's so new. They think, well, if I just slap this out there, they'll be fine. Well, the reality is like it may not cover you, especially with the breakdown of coverage. So like if you have $500,000 worth of coverage, but they only cover $100,000 in a ransomware event, it may not be enough. So talk to an agent. If you don't like the agent that you're talking to, you could get a cyber liability policy separate from your normal business insurance. You don't have to use the same company. Now, there are advantages to using the same company because it's usually one form, or it's a little bit easier because you're working with one agent, but that's not necessarily the case. So we're not an agent, but we actually even shop ours. So I'll fill that out. I'll see what the prices are, and I'll shop it. Mine has went up significantly in the last couple of years. Everybody's is going up significantly in the last couple of years. So just understand that. But just please don't lie in that form. If you're not doing something, be honest and go back and have it go through underwriting and see if they reject you. If they reject you, they'll tell you why. They should tell you why. And then you can make that change there. But if you're not doing something today, don't lie and say you are. Even if you plan on doing it in the future, don't lie. So I hope this was helpful. I hope it kind of shows you just like the changes that are happening. And we don't know what the future holds. We don't know if for a loan at a bank, you're going to be required to have cyber liability insurance. There's some talk that might be a case. There might be some requirements just in some states where you have to have cyber liability insurance to have a business. So let's get ahead of this. Let's make sure that we're doing the right things. Let's make sure that your cybersecurity is on point. Let's make sure you're doing everything right. And let's make sure that we find agents who actually know what they're doing. So I hope this is helpful. Appreciate you. Until next time, stay cyber safe.